Life speaks. It speaks through struggles and success, through music and messages, the preconceived and the unexpected. Whether you are in the depths of the valley or in the midst of your mountaintop experience, everyone needs to be encouraged from time to time. You've tuned in to ALH Broadcasting, and this is Andrea L. Hines, your host for When Life Speaks. I'm glad you accepted the invitation to connect with us as we share stories of strength, testimonies of triumph, observations, and information meant to touch the heart and uplift the soul. There's something in this broadcast just for you, and if it's a blessing to your life, it just may be for someone else as well. So tag, share, invite someone, then turn down the volume of life and get ready to receive, so that when life speaks, you speak life. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to When Life Speaks. I am your host, Andrea L. Hines, and I have a friend on with me tonight, Nykyyetta Williams. Nykyyetta, good evening to you.
Good evening, Elder and everyone.
Nykyyetta is a faithful listener to the ALH Broadcasting family, and she is very, what should I say, conscientious in her participation because she's on with our 8 at 8 show and many of the shows that come on ALH Broadcasting. And I thank her for being here tonight. This is not her usual spot, but she decided to step in, and I'm glad that she is here. We're going to share some different things with you tonight because, hey, life is new every day. It got new things going on all the time, and there are always ways that we learn, that we grow, that we are able to share things that happen in our lives, because whatever story we have, there is always a backstory. There's a way that we got there. There's a way that we went through some of the things that we went through in order to be at the place and the position where we are right now. That's the heart of the testimony. That's God writing our story. And we started out, I think we're in July now. So I think probably the end of June, around that time, that we started really giving foundation for what we were going to be talking about and what we were going to be focusing on. And that is the testimony. We've been talking about the power of the testimony. We've had some people come in and tell their testimony and share their testimony. And we're going to be kind of, I know the word I want to use. This is unscripted. This is definitely an unscripted night. And that is okay, because we had some things planned. We had some things set up. We knew exactly what we were going to do. But what happened at Nykyyetta? Life. That what happened.
Yes, it sure enough did. Yes, it did, Elder. Life happened.
Life happened. And it threw us off for a little bit. But the truth of the matter is that that's part of what some of our testimonies are about. The fact that you can have things laid out, you can have them planned, you can think you absolutely know the plans of God and how you're supposed to execute his will and do things his way. But then life happens. Different things will get in the way. She and I were talking just before we came on the air. Some things happened with her schedule today that kind of pushed back what she was planning to do for the program tonight. But I was explaining to her, how many times do we have technical difficulties? How many times, I've had to send a note out at the last minute and say, we will not air tonight because something went wrong. We were not able to get things in line like we wanted to. We weren't able to share like we wanted to. But that's okay. It's okay because we do our part. God always does his part. And somehow it always works out. So we're good tonight. We're good tonight. And I thank Nykyyetta for even stepping up. Our plan was to have all of our notes from the village because Nykyyetta is a part of the village. And we were going to read through those notes and do all of that, but they are not accessible to us tonight. So we're going to still go forward because I know that Nykyyetta had something to share from her own testimony that she didn't get to do the last time she was on the air. So I'm going to turn it over to her a little bit and just let her talk about, how she feels that the power of testimonies are and tell us a little bit about her own journey. So Nykyyetta, why don't you go ahead and start with that?
Well, thank you, Elder, for handing the reins back over to me. I have to be transparent. It was more than a technical glitch. I had something to share. Like Elder said, I'm a part of the village, and I just things happened, and my schedule was off key because in my personal life, I have a significant other that I'm married to now, and he has health challenges. And I've been running with him for the most part, trying to help him overcome what he had going on early July. He had surgery, and had oh, the surgery had something major happen to him. So we had to I had to help him verbalize certain things, get things in order. And so yeah, that's what took me out of my normal how can I say understanding of what I need to do for the other thing that I was supposed to do tonight. And so therefore it caused me to misplace things, not be on my usual game where I understand the assignment and come through like I'm supposed to, but I digress. My journey really began from young youth. I had knew of the Lord, being around my family members on my mother and my father's side, going to church with different aunts, uncles, and so forth. And basically, I had trauma. Most people have trauma, but I had trauma while I was living with my mother and father. That they never separated; they were married, and things happen: physical abuse, emotional abuse, and such. But my mother was a faith-driven woman, and I say was because she's no longer with us. Um, she married my father, uh, and my father was in his own right a religious man, but he wasn't a Christian. He was a Muslim, and my mother was brought up in the Christian faith, and so we had a dichotomy of two different faiths going on in the same household. And my father never taught me or my brothers, I don't believe, any Arabic, which is the common Muslim dialect. Um, and we never went to the formal masjid, which is a temple for Islam and Muslim followers to go to on Juma, which is Friday afternoon service. And then Saturday, you might go to the masjid once in a while for an activity or prayer or whatever. I found that out much later in my youth or in my life, just going around looking at different faiths through schooling and everybody being around me and just asking questions. But I didn't know any of this when I was growing up in the household. So like I was starving for a a path, but I didn't know my path because my my mother was like abused physically and emotionally to
We're online. Oh, with people? Go ahead, Nykyyetta.
physically and emotionally to my father from my father, and we was as well. So basically, it was just a way of escapism, through books and studying. So my journey started from being traumatized and being in trauma to now, as I'm a young adult, going to be soon 50. Uh, I'm more faith driven. I have more of a Christian relationship with the Father, and I really try to either go online and be a part of a Christian ministry, or I go to a church in my area named Christian Cultural Center in the borough I live in Brooklyn, New York. And so basically, my faith has grown leaps and bounds because I'm not in that place anymore of traumatization because my parents are no longer living, and also because God has kept me, even though I was going through that. He's kept me, and I didn't know what was going on because I was still a young child and I'm trying to figure it out. But God has shown me through people and experience that He's always had me. He was always there for me, but I didn't know until I grew. So
Understood.
yeah,
Understood. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask you too, as we are kind of reviewing some of the things that we had talked about earlier in shows earlier. We talked about why people don't share their testimony sometime. And Pastor Kelvin, who comes on a lot with the village and participates, was saying that he believed that people are reluctant to share their testimony because we fail to understand the power that resides within us and as a part of that testimony. Revelation 12 and 1 instructs us that they overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, which suggests that our testimony serves not only you, but those who hear it as well, because sharing your testimony invites others to overcome in spaces where defeat is threatening. Now, as you listen to that and you listen what to Pastor um, Kelvin said, over the years and as you were learning and growing and everything, uh, what was there anything or was there any particular time that you kind of drew back or were not as forthcoming with your testimony and what you had gone through in your life? Because I know we mentioned some things. We talked about shame and embarrassment, fear, people looking at you differently, not wanting to expose flaws, and not thinking it's powerful enough. Did you go through any of those things in terms
Oh,
of not sharing?
yes. It took me a while to speak on what was my story to anyone that I felt safe with because in my household we were told, because there's so many secrets and so many things to be covered up, we were told whatever comes across this door sill stays in this house, and we
Mhm.
couldn't reach out to the outsiders or the people that may have had a way to help us as kids, because I had two brothers too. If we were being mistreated or emotionally uh, uh, used or whatever, the norm wasn't normal for kids going to school. Things that happened at the house that wasn't normal or didn't feel right to an adult after they see it in the realm of a child. So that's when I was not able to express because of fear.
Because of fear.
Also, like, um, I had emotional trauma myself going through what I went through as a young child, and as a young adult, I started going to therapy. That's unheard of in African American community. But where I landed up, and this is only God, I believe, where I landed up, where I ended up was in a in a household that was run by sisters, nuns.
Okay.
And it started off as me asking for help when my father passed away. My father, to me, and this is not to downplay him, but my father scared me. And I think he was scared when he was young too. And so he just resonated what he felt when he was a kid. He had 8 brothers and sisters. He was the seventh child. And so, to find your footing as a child in a big family and then to see or witness what you witnessed, it's just like a boomerang effect. Everything that happens for a reason, and things happen in different people's lives. And the God that I know, he knows about it before we can even say it. So
Right.
he's orchestrating in the background what's going to happen to you before you know about your story and the ending of the journey.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was different facets in my life that I was scared, I was ashamed, I
Uh-huh.
was ridiculed as I was growing into myself and made fun of as I was going through the trauma. As a young child going to school, they would throw my book bags and stuff in the garbage can. They would call me names. But most kids went through that. But I was more ashamed because I knew what household I came from, what I was
Okay.
going through in the house. And I couldn't tell the young kids that was teasing me, you're right or you're wrong, because really what they were saying was your mother and father's this, your mother and father, because they were that. And I didn't have nothing to do but to physically fight them because they were abusing me and my brothers. So I
Mm.
was I'm the oldest in the family as siblings. And so I'm protective of my brothers because they're younger than me, and that's my job supposedly as the oldest. And I had to protect them from physical harm from other people, and
Hmm.
also protect them from my father, who was drinking or whatever have you and was out of his mind in the clear realm of being a parent. And so basically I had to protect them from physical and emotional scars too. So yeah, all those things factor in when you tell your story or what part of the journey you
Decide.
expose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that you did mention too, and I am so glad that it has turned around, and many people from the village and just guests in general who come on talk about the fact that they are so blessed that that the stigma of therapy is not as strong as it used to be. So many people are going to therapy. So many people who believe in God are going, because it was definitely a stigma against the Christians to seek help outside of prayer. So I'm glad that we have gotten a point. And Dr. Paula Obi, who's part of the village too, she mentioned that she turned in some information about lessons learned, and we talked about that being something that the testimony helps you with. And hers was focused actually on grief.
Right.
And let me tell you a little bit about her story. And while I'm doing that, Ida and Bernice, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. And if possible, if either of you want to put something in the comment section about a time where you were reluctant to share, and the reason why you may have been reluctant to share your testimony, if you want to put that down, feel free to do so. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Dr. Paula said. I'm just going to read through it. And Nykyyetta, if there's something in this that you want to comment on, feel free to do it when I finish. Okay.
Okay.
Um, she says, so here is my story. One of my closest friends, co-workers, and allies became sick at work, and emergency personnel were called. She suffered a stroke and an aneurysm and was placed on life support for a short period of time. When the family decided to remove her from the life support system, she quietly transitioned. She was like a big sister to me and a confidant. I was so devastated and distraught, I began to have conversations with another person in particular who was sent by the church to, quote, look after me as they were the closest in proximity. When you are in this type of grief, you want and need someone with you through this tragic time. However, you have to be mindful of the character of the person, and unfortunately, you do not have the energy to do anything but try to get through the pain of the loss per minute, hour, and day. This is a key time when I can admit that I emotionally checked out and was no longer thinking sensibly. I am glad that during this process, I am thankful for therapy and the healing of God. So I'm gonna kind of leave that there. She goes deep into some things that are happening, and it's more than we can handle in a program. But the essence, I talked with her today because I said, Dr. Paula, I really want to be sure that I am presenting your story correctly, and what is the essence of this. And what she was saying to me, that there are certain times in certain situations, hers happened to be grief, where you just are not emotionally ready to make decisions. Sometimes you have to step back and step away from what's going on and what's happening and how you're handling it and who you are handling it with, in order to have a clear perspective of what you're saying and what your need really is at the time. Can you see where her thought process is coming from in that? Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna be able to at some point either invite her on, or she has her own program. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about that and talk about it a little bit deeper. I know for me, it's not just from a testimony standpoint, but I find that in any difficult situations, and usually our testimonies are built around difficult situations, things that happen, things that challenge us, things that change us. And as a result of that, we tend to want a quick fix. We want it to be done now. And I was chatting with some people today, and we were talking about the issue. As a matter of fact, it was Dr. Paula, and we were talking about the issue of waiting. How in many of the testimonial types of situations, the things that we are working through and the things that God brings us out of are based around us being in fix-it mode. And if you all are out there listening and you got a comment to make, please feel free, because we believe God. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
We believe in God. You agree with that?
Yes.
He is greater than anything we could ask or think. You agree with that?
Yes, I do.
He is more than enough. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, more than enough. So we got all of these things, and he is depositing in us everything that we will need for the journey that he has for us. You believe in that?
Yes, I do.
So why is it so hard to wait? Why is it that we get to the part we know all these great and wonderful things about God, but for whatever reason, when you're in the midst of the storm, or when you're in the midst of the trial or the test, and we talk about laying it at the altar, you take that part of your story, you lay it at the altar, you go before God and you ask him, Father, take this, I'm putting this at your feet, I want you to handle it, I want you just tell me what to do. And we immediately get up and say, now what am I going to do now? And off we go. Off we go. Off we go. Sil, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. Have any of you out there felt that way or found yourself in that position? And you have to go into it in great detail, but we were just, like I said, we were just in conversation, because sometimes that's where you gain your strength. That's when you feel empowered. When you are talking with someone who has gone through what you're going through or what you've been through. What you thinking, Nykyyetta?
I think that our lack of our inability to wait just comes from what we see in the world. Like, everything's rushed. Everything needs to happen at a certain point. And we, as, I guess, we're faith driven, and we're spiritual beings, and we love the Lord, but it's always a but. But what if something else happens? But what if this happens? What if this don't happen? Well, what if God didn't see this? It's just, I guess it's what you would call uh like not being unintentionally intentionally anxious for something, but you know that what you know about God says, be anxious for nothing, for I am with thee.
Mhm.
Like, you know what you know, but instead of just letting it go and let God, you just like, what am I to do? I mean, I know I said that, but it's something that you have to do. It's like diarrhea of the thoughts. You can't just stop and let him just do what he have to do, or you'll go crazy. It's like something within you as a human. It's like playing chess. If you don't move fast enough, the chessboard will be, just stuck.
Mhm.
And there's two people playing it, and usually they have a timer on the well-known chess players. They have a timer, and they ain't gonna wait for you to figure it out. You might lose your turn because you hadn't moved.
Too much time.
And we feel so uh held up if we don't move, even though we know we're supposed to let it rest with the Father. It's like we feel like we lost something if we're
Mhm.
not actively trying to do something about the situation.
Mhm. Now, Bernie said yes, she has been in that place before. That waiting is tough. Pastor Valerie tells us fear of the unknown can cause you to be uncomfortable and cause you to want to fix things yourself. Very good point. There's three of the things that I had made note of here. Um, uh, Nykyyetta was saying, but there's always a but. I know he can do this, but I know he's more powerful than anything I'm dealing with. But the second little two-word phrase is what next? What 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 next? What's the next thing that's going to happen? I'm waiting, but if the promise isn't manifesting, if it's not coming to pass, I know there's sometimes an expiration date I need him to move by. We don't want to admit it, but sometimes we got that expiration date as to what it is. And I was talking to my daughter not long ago, and we were talking about a particular situation, and we said we get stuck in the then what? If I wait and whatever God has planned for me manifests and all that, then what? If it's not the way I think it's going to be, if it doesn't turn out the way I think it's going to turn out, if things don't manifest the way that I thought his promise was going to manifest, then what? Where am I? How do I continue to trust? How do I continue to go forward believing, just believing, no doubt, just believing. And sometimes that is the power of the testimony, is when you have gotten to that place that whatever you were believing God for, whatever you were thinking that he had for you, that you waited it out, you waited through it, you waited until, and everything was greater than you imagined that it would be. And that's that power. That's the power of God, allowing God to write the story. Whew. And Bernice said something too. Bernice said there are no time limits on in the waiting as we think it should be. No time
Amen.
limits on that. Yep, 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 yep.
Amen.
Let
Amen.
me see. I had something else here that came from one of the villagers, and I think it is from uh, Ruth. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, she said the biggest thing for her, and we were asking people what were the pivotal moments in your testimony. She said the biggest thing was the diagnosis for bipolar 2 depression 20 years ago. She said, though I didn't get immediate treatment, that it helped me to understand that I wasn't just crazy, that there was help. Help I was eventually able to get. But when they didn't solve all my problems, it was further diagnosed of ADHD, autism, and OCD. It gave me further insight into me and helped me understand what was me, what wasn't, and how I could either best work on it or work around it. Things, let me see if there's something else here. We cannot share and be vulnerable, or else people will discover that we are not what they think we are. And I think that is another thing um, with sharing that people put in a place, or why they are reluctant sometimes to share. People, and it's interesting, and I don't know whether any of you all have experienced this or not, but we make up our own um, ideas about people. It's not necessarily that they're wearing a mask or that they're even trying to, but we make a decision, and I think that comes in or can fall under the umbrella of judging people, and we see them a particular way, and then when we find out that they are not that way, then we feel that they have somehow um, falsely represented themselves, when it really isn't that. It's what you made a decision that they were, and how you perceive them to be. I remember going to a conference, and we had to share a room and get a roommate and everything, and it was a choir thing. So one of the young ladies in the choir and I were going to share a room, and she told me, she said, I was so surprised that you were willing to share a room with me. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, I don't have much college education, and here you are, you got a corporate job, and you're going for your PhD, and blah 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 blah. And I thought, who told you I was going going for a PhD? There's no, at no time did I ever tell anybody that I was going pursuing a PhD. I thought, what would make you say that? What would make you even think that? I said, no, that's not true. Now, that's not something that I told her. That's not something that I ever shared for her or with her, but it was her perception. It was her perception. Sometimes when you have a testimony that includes the struggle, the transparency, the differences, that's the best thing that you can do for somebody, because they have all of these things in their head that they have made up on their own. about who you are, how you grew up, where you grew up, and all manner of other things. And that testimony can be very, very impactful in setting the record straight to say, you see me as a strong person, but there was a journey. I didn't get where I am because I got everything right all the time. I got where I am because of the things that I got wrong and the things that God helped me to get over. Somehow, He did that. Let's see, Bernice said, "Oh, okay, I had gotten her comment there." We have a lot. There's a lot that goes into the testimony. There's a lot that we can take from the testimony. There's a lot of power, of course, in the testimony. We had another one, and actually, I'm not going to get into it tonight, but another one that was submitted by Francina. Francina is going to be on with us, I think, the first Thursday in August. And she's going to be talking about her cancer journey, which in and of itself is a phenomenal testimony. But one thing that is exceptional with her is the doors that her cancer journey have opened for her, in terms of where she tells her story and the huge platform that she has been given to tell her story. And I think, and I want to put something else out there, just to ask, have you been in a situation or a circumstance where you have shared and your timing was off, or the individual that you shared it with was not able to handle it? Has that ever happened to anyone out there? Yeah. Tell me about it, Nykyyetta.
Well, at one point in my teenage life, I would say, for a lack of a better expression, I was in between my sexuality, and I divulged some information to, I thought, a good friend. And they like totally alienated me when I said what I had told the person.
Hmm.
And I think they were thrown aback because they weren't that unsure of what they wanted, and I was philandering or whatever I said to them. They took it to be like, oh, I can't talk to you no more. I can't be your friend no more. And uh, it kind of put me in a predicament where I wanted to shut down. I didn't want to talk to anyone else about anything.
Hmm.
And I was in junior high school. I didn't want to talk anything to anyone, whether it's a trained professional, whether it was a girlfriend, whether it was a foe. I just shut down. And that taught me at a young age that you have to be all right with, if people don't take what you have to say as something that they can handle.
Yeah.
I had to change my inwardly uh feelings of fear and embarrassment, and make it where I could rebound from what I went through with that situation, and try to be more uh uh on purpose, with whom I shared my information with and my feelings with. I
Hmm.
couldn't just do fly by night people or situations on time that I feel like exposing something about myself. I had to be guarded. I had to
Right.
guard my
Right.
feelings and things.
Yeah. That's wisdom and that's discernment also.
Right.
That comes into play whenever we're thinking about that. Victoria says sometimes people can't handle your truth, and I think
Amen.
that is a very true statement. A very true statement. With this discussion and the things that we have been dealing with and talking about, and we have also had one of our very first guests was on with us last week. She was coming in live from Puerto Rico under the power of one, and the things that she has, you know, endured or been able to endured seems like a hardship kind of word, so I don't want to really use that, but the things that she has been able to do and accomplish, um, because she was willing to take a step to be transparent and to follow whatever it was that God had put in her hands to do. I want to ask those of you who have tuned in tonight, if there is something in particular that you think that we, anybody, uh, can or should do so that our testimonies have the effect that we want them to. Like we want our testimonies to be uh, inspiring, to be helpful, to be empowering, um, to help someone to understand that they are not in it alone. Um, do you have anything that you think would be helpful in the journey of sharing, um, that would really help people to pivot the way that they need to in the midst of the storm or in the midst of the tests? Can you think of anything? I can think. I think I need to know me, first of all.
Amen.
First
Amen.
and foremost, I need to know me. I need to know who He's called me to be, because that gives me the confidence in who I am to be able to share and be vulnerable, without encountering the pain that will sometimes come when people can't handle your truth. That I would be strong enough in myself as an individual that if you can't handle it, it won't break me. It won't pull me apart. It won't tear me apart. Does anybody else have anything on that they want to share?
I,
Oh,
think,
why?
I think for me, I, I I think in general people have to be able to grow as much as they. I mean, they shouldn't be fearful to grow within their journey. Like, don't don't because of one setback or one misstep of when you relinquish your vulnerability to, like you said, shrink or not be effectively helpful in your testimony. Like, if someone called you out on something you said, you don't always have to defend it with a response.
Very good.
Just go ahead and say, okay, maybe you didn't feel that way, or maybe you didn't understand what I said. And you don't even have to go and relinquish power, like, and explain yourself or re-explain yourself. You can just go ahead and let them feel the way they feel, but also take mental note that not that person mattered because they felt a certain way. Maybe they heard you, but they didn't understand. So don't negate the fact that they didn't quite understand. Just use it for a lesson or a training for the way you explain your journey or your thought process on your story, and whom to share it with, and how to captivate a people so that they can feel less vulnerable when they share similar story.
Great. That's great. That's great. Well, we are coming up on, we are right at 7:45 now. And let me see what Bernice has to say. She says, I think, remember, don't be judgmental when sharing or when someone is sharing their testimony with you. And that is a powerful statement, Miss Bernice, to end on tonight. I believe that that issue and that scenario of being judgmental is something that is a block in so many ways and in so many areas. So I thank you for sharing that with us. And Nykyyetta, I thank you for hanging in there with me tonight. And
I'm grateful to you.
we have
I'm
one more segment, and that will be next week, our final segment in this part of the testimony series, and it will be coming from Dr. Angela Rigsby. She is one who has a powerful, and when I tell you a powerful testimony on sexual violence, domestic violence. But next week, she's going to be talking from the standpoint of it's not over. So she may be touching on the domestic violence issue, but she had something else come up here recently that has really kind of changed the trajectory of the way that her life was headed. So she's going to close out this particular series, and then we'll start on something new in August. So I thank you so much for being with me tonight. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for your comments. Nykyyetta, thank you for stepping up and being willing to hang in there, lady.
Thank you so much, Elder, for guiding me. I thank you, God, for for this program. Sometimes life be life, but when life speaks, we want to speak life, right?
There you go. You got it. You got it. Hey, that's a good end. You be sure and come on back next week and be ready to turn down the volume of life, because like I had already gave you your instructions. When life speaks, you will speak life. Thank you guys. I love you all and have a great week.
Night, night.
Night.